Anil Joshi has been the recipient of a number of outstanding awards that are familiar to Indians, but not very familiar to you. So I'll just mention a couple of them. So if I was going to give his presentation an adequate representation, an adequate introduction, it would take more time than you're allowed to allow him to have a speech. So I'll keep it short and point out that he was in 2006 the recipient of the Padma Shri Award, which is given by the government of India to outstanding service in either education or public service or arts or other fields. It was also listed among the Real Heroes Award of CNN and IBN, which is the affiliate of CNN in India. In the year 2002, he was named Man of the Year in the popular magazine The Week, which is something like the Indian equivalent of Newsweek magazine. And so he is well known in India and has made a significant contribution to social life there. It was in 1979 that he first became aware of some of the community problems in the Himalayas, one of them being the difficulty that villagers have after landslides, which are fairly common in that region. And with his knowledge of botany, in which he received his PhD earlier, he initiated the planting by local people of trees that would address the problem of landslide and soil erosion. This led to other projects like the recharging of Himalayan springs, which sometimes dry out because of deforestation, and of course recognizing the importance of forests to the Himalayan environment. Another interesting development that he has been involved in is the prevention of forest fires by community action. In fact, there's, as I said, a lot more that I could say. Over the last 29 years, he has guided and motivated many people to work for the hill villages, using science and technology to solve basic needs of mountain communities. And so his contribution to these communities is rather outstanding. And I'm very privileged to introduce him. So please join me in welcoming Anil Joshi.
Namaste.
Namaste.
I have been introduced, I'm sure. And well, I'm honored that I have been told I'm a speaker, but honestly saying that I'm here not to give a speech. I'm truly representing my community. And what I'm talking is a collective efforts. Maybe I'm representing all of them here, but it's a collective efforts. And some of the issues which are important for all of us, be an American or English or the Indians. What I'll speak today is of one issue which of course have been disturbing all of us one way or the other. That is what regenerating ecology and economy, but I'll begin with saying regenerating ecology and economy, and it's sustainable across the globe. And I'm again repeating it, that whatever I will talk about is a collective efforts, experience, and a common opinion of many people of like minded, and who are all worried about this society. It is a collective, and I am representing is altogether a different thing, but it is a common presentation. will agree with me, actually, in the past 100 years, we have become a developed society. It may be different, that is, America is quite developed, and there are many countries in the world underdeveloped. But one or other nature, we are towards development. And when we are developing, that there is a conflict also, which comes from the environmentalist, social activists, anthropologists, philosophers, and so on, that ecology and economy, we have a conflicting approach. We say we take cost of ecology when we do the development at the cost of economy. There is definitely a conflict between. Definitely, we agree, all of us will agree with the fact that there has been unscrupulous use of the natural resources across the globe. They have not been very honest in using the resources. We have been biased. We had only one intention: development, comfort, luxury. We are biased. We have been biased against. And you know that today we highly talk and we have been discussing nationally, internationally, global warming, climate change. Ultimately, if you arrive to what it is all about, it is definitely somewhere they have been ignoring resources, natural resources, and focusing. And equally important, the whole globe, I cannot much mention of this part of the country, globe, but in my country and developing countries, there is urban-centric development approach. What's happening in India, for example, and also in some South Asia, whatever we have development scored, it is somewhere in the urban. The rural parts, unfortunately, largely neglected, ignored. And there is definitely an economic disparity which is looming large, and it is a major problem leading to many, many other issues. Next. The consequences which we today cannot deny are, we have major shift in the past from agriculture to other development. That means industries has been a major tool of development across the globe. We believe that the development of a given country should be based on the industry and its products. We also, in the race of that, equally ignore one fact, and that is that the producer, for the primary producer, could not have advantage of the resources as the secondary and the others. Take an example of a farmer. What he produces, he does not get that much what the middleman gets, or ultimately the one who processes it and brings it to the market. That has been, in the long term, one very important issue for the producer in the world. I was recently in Canada and was talking to the farmers. They were unhappy. And so is the case in my country, where we have 80% people, 70-75% people who are farmers. They do not get prices what they are supposed to have. And others, the middlemen, the others get more. And that is a kind of dissatisfaction that is looming large in the rural part. Rural means the farmer, farmer means the common man, who truly form the population of any given country. The urban hardly present in any given country 20%. 80% are farmers, rural, and poor relative. So that was the consequences they will arrive to. And besides, definitely there has been dwindling resource status. And I'll come to give an example of India here. But one thing which we should all agree that whatever approach we had in the past in development using education as a tool, this education which currently we gave was definitely dissociating. It was dissociating from our land, our family, from our village. I am trained for XYZ, I leave my village to get a job in the town. We had never thought the kind of education which should give the values to me to stay back in my village, and find avenues to generate local ecology and economy. But to me and to many, the education has been, current education has been dissociating, disconnecting from my own land. Now, before I go ahead, I would like to give you the history of all of us. And our history is next. We begin with the village. All of us, if we go into our root, we were a part of a village. And there in the village used to be a sustainability. We nowadays talk about, most of the scientists, technologies, it is very often used word, sustainability, whether it is economically sustainable, whether it is ecologically sustainable, whether what pursuit is this, whether it is sustainable or not. Sustainable is word which we have been often using. Now, most sustainable was a village. It is everyone's history, right? Americans, Indians and everyone. There used to be a village. And the village was defined as what? An environment, resources, natural resources around. And to use the natural resources, there were different type of the human resource. For example, every community, every village had one mason, the one responsible to build the house. Another was a carpenter, there was a blacksmith, and so was the cobbler. And there was a kind of sustainability. They were using natural resources and resources of XYZ, and at the very time, intra and interdependence was there in the village. Cobbler was being helped by mason to build a house, and at the term, the carpenter had been helping the others. There was an intra and interdependence. When I say interdependence, every 2, 3, 4, 5 villages used to make a community. One village had a barber, other had a carpenter, third had a mason. This was, and there was a perfect sustainability. The resource like water, resource like forest, agriculture, what we used to produce, there was surplus kind of a sustainability with surplus production, which they used to share in other communities across. Now what happened? We were all, this was all of us history, be it in Indian or any other part of the world. What happened in the course of time? In the course of time, technology, science that came, definitely the sciences and technology were very important to help us to, as a human, we have a mind, and then we have a capacity to think and build. But technology and science has been a tool for the same. We came with the technology and the knowledge, and in the course of time, what happened? Ruptured. The village ruptured. And how? What happened that the cobbler, the one who used to make a shoe in the village, was replaced by today's, maybe it is a Reebok, or in my place it may be a Bata, or in my place another. See what happened? The knowledge of technology and science was centrally in origin. It was somewhere other from the rural areas, where urban, where the process of the resources was became the responsibility, and technology and science developed there more as compared to the village. And as a result, what a mason used to do, for example, in my village, there has been a mason who used to work on stone. And then came the brick. He was not doing the brick work. And as a result, his job was replaced by some other mason from some other place. Carpenter. And also human resources that were locally available to use, their job was snatched by the knowledge and technology developed somewhere else and replaced their job. This begin the degeneration of this complete, next one, this ecological sustainability that we had. We used to have a forest, we had a dependent, used to raise the animal, fodder fuel collection, water resources. This was a kind of economical and ecological sustainability we had in the past in our villages, not one everywhere in the villages. But as I said, technology developed, science developed, and it was centrally kind of oriented. So the job of the community was replaced by centrally produced the industries. The industry was centrally producing something which the village used to make. And the resources of whatever the villages had been producing, transported Then it was made somewhere, and ultimately, as I say, they become consumer in a different way of their own resources in time to come. Now, when it began, it was all right up to some extent, but regenerations, the migrations, and many other things followed the same. The villager, when they find no more livelihood opportunity, they begin to migrate. Urban became crowded, opportunities were more, and at the very time, what happened? The villages begin to vacate. The opportunities were more and more in the urban areas, and the villages began avoiding the villages. Now, as a result, today, for the last 100 years, take an example of my country. I'm taking an example of my country. We have 6.5 lakh villages. 6.5 means 6 in the million. 7,000. 700,000 million villages that we have in a country, and the fate of these villages, there is no economic prosperity anymore, no sustainability, and the people prefer to go and get an employment opportunity in other places than in their own village. Now, it was even then it was accepted, it is all right, let the village go on and find a job in the urban areas. But ultimately, what has been coming as a curse was in the form of resource depletion. When I say the resource, I refer to the soil, water, air which we breathe, clean air, these and the forest, ultimately, which conserve all these resources. It began because the one who used to guard resources, generate resources, they begin to vacate the village. And since the villager did not have any interest in their own resources anymore, because they did not have much return of their resources, be it agriculture produce, be it any other kind of a local produce, they did not have adequate return. They thought that it is better to get a job somewhere in urban area than living in the village where there is no one. Because in a village like ours, there is no even basic amenities available. Taking an example, basic amenities, when we say there is no hospital adequate, no community services, and even infrastructure, we do not have many places road reached. So people, the villagers villagers thought that it is better to live close to the city or in the city to find some alternative job, and they also realized that whatever they produce, the returns are not adequate. Why should we produce these resources? Agriculture, why should we conserve the water? They begin to vacate the village. To give an example, I have come from a state, in 10 years, 1100 villages vacated. 1100 villages, they have been vacated, and mainly because two main reasons. They wanted to get a job somewhere in the cities, and that was the internal migrations. That the closest of the village there was any town, city, they begin to pour into. And ultimately what happened, which was a very difficult thing, that there began resource depletion. Next please. Now, I started now from here. Give an example of India. All of us should agree one fact, that the fundamental resources for our life are the water. None of us can live without the water. Food. None of us can have any alternative to food. The soil, which is the most important base for agriculture, and also the clean air which comes from the forest. These are our fundamental resources, and there is no alternative to that. Now, if we define today a development, which is economically we have been well off, my country also has been claiming a 6, 7, 8, 9 GDP. But at the very time, we have many resources depleting in the country, and unfortunately, the planner and policy maker are more focused on the growth rate that they can attain, like America or the China. But at the very time, they forget that the true capital of any given society and a state and a village are its resources. And what economy we are running after today is a pseudo-economy, because I know 2008 was an era at the time when total economy across the globe was dwindling. It collapsed. No more product of industries was sold. It was a kind of an economy which is a pseudo-economy, which comes down and go up. And a true economy of resources, if you have a forest, you are all time alive. If you have a soil, you have food, good food to eat. And so the water, we cannot remain alive without water. It is so. But unfortunately, they have never been the part of development. And also, the way we have been giving our growth rate, gross domestic product, we did not have any account what the status of the soil, water, and the forest we have. We have not been giving any account of that as regularly as we have been giving economic growth rate. What happened? When we kept ignoring that, the result was that many places deforestation came, many places the river dried up, and many places total soil runoff was there. I remember that we did one bicycle march to closely study the plight of the farmer in the country and to see closely the environmental status, the resources status in the country. And then we suddenly found that many important rivers in the country are drying up. But at the very time, our GDP is growing. Because our GDP is growing on something which is pseudo in our opinion, because industrial growth is marked as the true growth in any country, any development country. And we disagree with that in principle. Any place, any region, any village, the ecology and economy so go together. Where there is economy growing, you are loser by ecology front. And because even we grow well in economy and three things are taken away from us, air, water, said, well, you won't get a food, you won't get a air to breathe and then water to drink, and you become the Prime Minister of India or the President of America. I don't think we will not agree with that. We'll have, because without them we cannot survive. And unfortunately, we have been running out after a development index, a totally economic index kind of issues, and where we find what pattern of economic growth we should attain, we are largely forgetting the same. And we found, giving some example of the same, I have come from a place which is called Himalaya, which is full of river, and this full of river, the part of the nation, Himalaya, feeding 65% people of the country by giving the water. But at the very time, because the rivers flow very low, the people living in the Himalaya are deprived of water. And at the very time, the same government, which is not giving the water dam, building big dams on such river. Because the priority is energy. They feel that the priority is energy, and therefore they are building the dam, but at the very time, the people in this catchment of Ganges, which is the biggest river in this country, the people are deprived of water. Secondly, and we have in country across many known rivers. India is full of rivers. One, Kaveri, this is the status of Kaveri, which is totally dried up in South India. Next. And so the place Adilabad, we have another river which we call the Godavari. These rivers are drying up in India. Similarly, the third, which is very close to the capital of the country, called Yamuna River, which is very close. This flows through the capital of the country, and the status of the river is the same. But unfortunately, the policy maker, politicians are unaware of the fact that if water won't be there, there will not be nothing. And this river flows very close to the capital. And that was one issue. And similarly, the natural resources are governed, produced, conjured by the forest, and the claim of the forest of the government of India. I take an example. And so is the case across the globe. I am taking the example of my country. But across the globe, this is a fact, that the claim of the government of India that we have a very large and good cover of the forest, but study conducted by some Australian guy found that we have decline of 2.7% forest declining every year. And the government rate, the study was not like this. He said that we have 5% rise in the forest cover. But honestly, the study conductor found that. Next please. And the quality, it was not only the question of, the forest is something like a human. You cannot put a tree in any given place you want. It needs a right climate, right soil, and it has equal role to generate the local ecology. Unfortunately, the plantation, the forestation kind of issues where we are raising, we forget that the kind of tree we should plant in a given ecology, we go for a species which has nothing to do locally with the local community, because local community, the rural communities have inclusive growth, local forest, local water, local soil. It's an inclusive kind of development. We had, unfortunately, whatever in the name of afforestation we have been doing is something which is irrelevant to the community, and ultimately it led to the water resources drying up, because this is a tree planted in Himalaya. It is called cheed pine. It doesn't have any capacity to conserve the water. Waterfall, it immediately runs off, because we are a monsoon country. And we have a monsoon one time, and that is the time when we recharge our spring, our water resources. And if the water could not be stopped naturally through the forest, right kind of a forest, we will lose our water, and it has happened. In Himalaya, where you all have, you know the fact that in any region, the settlement of any village or a community has always been after a water resource. Today, we can bring a settlement in any place by supplying the water from one place to the other. But age-old settlement has always been a source of water there, a source of water was there. And for us, the source of water was a spring. The spring which was catching the water through the forest on upland and making the water path underground and leading, springing into the springs. That was we had our history for the water resources. But unfortunately, the kind of planning and the policy we had, afforestation we had, 30% of the spring had dried up, other 60% are on verge of drying. That's what we have in the waterfront. Similarly, we, in front of the quality air, the breathing air, the oxygen, we are one of the countries which has the India is, of course, ranked among most polluted countries, cities we have in the country. Now, the question is, and it is because of, again, development policies that we have, we didn't much care about the ecological issues, whether we should take and how to be taken. And there has not been any compulsion, like the gross domestic product, any measures which we could decide what growth we have done in front of ecology. We had an economy, and that was the reason that many rivers began to rise. Next please. And we have this development scenario. See, the vehicles, and then they are polluting the many cities and the towns. Next. And the industrial growth that we had brought have polluted a lot. But unfortunately, we don't have much plan to take care of anything emitted out of these industries. Similarly, this is a United Nations report, and in India also. You see, in the past 5, 6, 8 years, we have definitely been surplus by food. But the quality of food has stooped down. It has certainly stooped down, but it is still a report from United Nations that it is likely to be a threat to developing countries, developed countries in future, where the food is going to be scarce. And nextly, and we are a country which depends for its food production. 55% land which is under agriculture is rain-fed. And rain, when we talk about the latest climate change and the global warming, have totally jeopardized our train of agriculture in the country. Because we never know now when the rain will fall. Because as I said, we can wait for that, we can't wait for them. See, if I have to put a seed on the soil, and it has to be plowed, and a couple of things have to be done before, but never rain falls. And that is one thing which the farmers of the country, which have 55% land, as I said, and they are all poor marginal farmers, ultimately failed and became the victim of this climate change, which we unfortunately don't try to address through the means we could. So this is the fate of the agriculture, for example. But definitely, next please, definitely, there is an issue being discussed now. Because I have to tell you, unlike the American temperate countries, we are a tropical country. Slight fluctuation in the climate is very much visible there. Very much visible there. It is unlike it doesn't rain, doesn't fall. Even I have to tell you that if the rain of this monsoon, which was latest there, if the rain does not fall, it means that by October there won't be water in the springs. So the rain and the nature has a lot of things to do with the local community, and ultimately and unfortunately, the victim of all natural disaster that we have, and it changes the climate, the victims are ultimately the rural community in the India and across the globe too. So therefore, there is definitely a discussion that is underway. As an organization and as a community, we try how best we can do with that. How we try to do that, we begin with a simple slogan. We begin with that, if we have to bring back that sustainability with a new version. We never want to go back to the AAs, but we want that new technology, science should be incorporated to the community knowledge and technology, and they should further be linked with a new version. The resource utility can better match at prices what they could not do in the past, is the only means that the alternative that we can have, and therefore we begin with a simple initiative with the help of the community, because they are the major partner. The local need, meet locally, with simple principle that economy without ecology is not sustainable. We wanted to bring, because we believe that, and even today, if any climate we are enjoying, any water we are enjoying, any wood we are enjoying, it is not because of the urban. It is a rural contribution to the country. It is they who guard the water, who generate the resources, they do the farming for the rest of the world. It is the rural community who are the farmer. Farmer, rural, poor, this is all, they are all synonyms. They are doing it for the rest of us. Now, with that, we have in our mind, can we do something in a way where the farmers, the local community do not migrate? It is not there for their interest only, but for interest of the all. Everyone's interest, whether it is urban or rural, if we can come back with a new knowledge, technology, intervention, bring back them to their resource and give them similar employment opportunity in the village so that they can equally become economically important and viable as their counterparts using their resources have become. We begin with that, and that we said that we will try and work and we'll see whether it works or not, that local need meet locally. And for that we found that we can do it locally, and the factors, whether it is local needs, food and nutritional, physiological needs, body needs, because we knew that one fact, and everybody must be knowing it, that any human born in any given climate region has many things to do physiologically, what the crop they grow locally. I am giving you some example. My place, I am from the Himalaya, we grow finger millets, we grow buckwheat, we grow foxtail millets, and they definitely have many things to do with my physiology. I am giving very clear example of that. In high altitude, we grow buckwheat, and it is the only buckwheat which can reduce the solar radiation hazard of people living in the high altitude. It only contains the routine content. So there is definitely, and we produce finger millet because we are hard working community, and the finger millet contains highest percentage of calcium. So we begin with that whether it is a physiological need, economical needs, and knowledge, whatever needs we can do, local resource-based economy development if we can do, won't help the local community only, but will help everyone. Because we knew that if resource generation issue will come, no urban can generate any resource. The forest cannot be put in the New York and in New Delhi. The forest and agriculture cannot be done in the New York city. It can be done in the village only. And so in the New Delhi, in the capital. It is the farming community, is the rural community who are generating resources, who are guarding the resources, who are taking more pain than any one of us, should be reached. Because when we found the fate of the rural community migrating in the cities and getting very low kind of a job, no dignity was there. The dignity had always been what they produce, they sell, and they get money. We found that, but the only gap was whether when they produce something, whether they can value add it locally so that they can fetch relatively better prices. We begin with that. The thought in our mind, and we decided that we in our villages will work now with intervention where local resources, local knowledge, intermediate knowledge with the new technologies, we can club it, and local market, which currently the local market is across globe. Local market in the rural part of the world is flooded with the product made in urban. This is the study that we conducted. And at the very time we found that all these resources are only produced by the rural community. What happens? It is simply transported from the rural India, rural part goes to the cities where they are processed and we become the consumer. We begin to break that transportation. We begin to think that why, if they are sold in the rural shop, why not in a process form? Other community member will be involved to process value-added produce, and not only the rural shops only, but rural-urban connectivity should also be brought. What we can produce, others cannot. We thought of it, and if we evaluate it ourselves, will be rather more ecological food, more ecological product, and we can sell it by branding the same. So we begin with that, and what we did local resources, local knowledge, and displaced initially the local market. We begin that and take an example. For example, next page, we have agriculture being done in the mountains. But as I said, we can only produce millet, we cannot produce the paddy and the wheat. We don't have much irrigation facilities with us. What we tried in that, and we knew, in India, I do not know, but in India, it is said that those who eat millets mean the coarser grains, the low quality grains are low social status people. And that was one reason the millet began to disappear from the mountains. But we tried to give a new angle to it. We said, no, let us do something other than that. One where we began by two initiatives we took. As I said, we really need a new innovative market. You know, what we tried in that, we again motivated the farmers to grow the millet, and the very time we, being one of Himalayan part, have several shrines. We have several shrines around us. Many shrines. We went to the shrine and told to the priest that if you can buy something made from the millet, and those millions of pilgrims coming to the shrine can buy them, and it can become an offering from the God that will generate another set of employment in the local community. And so, the more and more millets will be grown, because millets can only be grown. The only thing is that we don't have market. We begin with that. And also we tried that whether we can produce some product which we claim will be Himalayan product, which we can claim they are nutri products made of the millet, because nutritionally the other cereals cannot compete the millets and the pseudo cereals. So we thought that it's an innovative approach we'll have to take, and we first went to the temple, shrine people. And nextly, and many shrines begin, and these are the shrines in India which are very popular shrine, and they begin working. And at many places, for example, next, there is a maize grown, maize was not being sold locally, they begin to make sweet balls out of it. Next one, like women doing, making in this village. This is a village in the Vaishnavi Devi is one temple, very popular. About 5 million people every year go in this village. Here the women were trained to make sweet balls, and technology science was put into so that it can remain good for another 2-3 months, the offering. And ultimately, next one, these particular village, today a single village has 4.4 million rupees turnover. And it is one of the very rare villages in the country which has this turnover. Not only they consume their own maize that they produce, but also they are now importing the maize from other villages. And that became an innovative market approach for them. Next, and so was the case in other cases too. Here, for example, banana, one variety of banana called kadali. In South India, in Kerala, one of the village has now the earning because he produces a banana which that temple can only accept. So we tried that the temple shrine, the temple can buy the produce of the local villages so that they have immediate employment opportunity.